and Stu on the mic, broadcasting through the night, talking F1, getting every fact kinda right, from the grid to the finish, they're all in. Top Step Podcast, let the race begin.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Top Step Podcast with Rhyss and Stu, and we are back for another installment of this fantastic show. How are you, mate?
Hey, good. How are you?
Oh, look, I am good after what was a fascinating weekend. All I can hear in the background is doot, 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 doot. But a fascinating Formula One weekend. Sprint race finally delivered, and a feature race that had plenty in it as well if you wanted to look anywhere but at the front of the pack, with Max running away with the whole weekend, and that just continues to make things very, very interesting indeed. There's a lot to cover ahead of the Mexican GP this weekend, so let's get the show on the road in the usual fashion. We'll just get this one done. It was a big weekend just gone, one that Red Bull will be duly satisfied with walking away from. An interesting weekend for McLaren, and we don't. The song says that we get our facts kind of right, and we make predictions, and we do all of that. And I don't know, mate. It's getting a little bit testy here with McLaren. The pressure is building. I can feel it.
Oh, absolutely! I could sense it coming through the TV screen. I could feel it coming through, and we do kind of get things right. We did write Max off a little bit earlier in terms of a few of the things, but we did say that unless the wheels fell off at McLaren and they didn't get out of their way, this is exactly what we'd be seeing. So it's going to be a very, very interesting run to the end of the year.
And I mean, I must admit that some of the issues that they've had haven't been from the wheels falling off. It's actually been caused by a real struggle to get the wheel off the car in the pit stop.
And then back on again.
And then back on again. So, but it not falling off yet, but definitely a wobble.
I do think that a wheel fell off on the weekend. It might not have been one of theirs, but one of the wheels fell off.
There was a wheel that fell off. It did roll down, after turn one, and it could well actually have been Lando Norris's wheel. So let's be fair, it was one of their wheels. But we'll cover that incident as well. So let's get straight into it. Let's have a look at the sprint race. And probably a little bit harsh for me to say the sprint race finally delivered. The sprint race is really good. I enjoy it. I am still an enthusiast and a traditionalist. I like the traditional Formula One, but the sprint weekends are good. They add some variety to it. And it would be remiss of us not to just get straight into talking about the turn one incident. Of course, qualifying was great. We've got Lando and Max up the front, and a little bit of a mixed bag as well in qualifying too.
Well, I think that's what I actually appreciate a little bit about the sprints is some of these cars aren't all that great in full race trim, and what we're seeing is a lot of cars dropping back in full race trim, but it sort of brings a lot of the outside liars into that contention, which is nice. I mean, like, I know that he didn't get points, but Gasly in 10th, your favourite man on the track.
How dare you?
Think you know a guy. In 10th is just not something that you see regularly in a race. So, yeah, I do enjoy that for the variety.
Well, the start, so just touching on qualifying, I've actually thought that you were going to bring up your man Nico just popping the kick Sauber in 4th, which is an amazing effort to get up into 4th. And Carlos Sainz, probably not to encroach on the Rhys ranks, and probably had his strongest weekend in the Williams so far this year, starting off with the 7th in the sprint. Both Williams in the 10 and the Ferraris in the 10. And the Racing Bulls probably having a little bit of a mixed bag. But the qualifying was really, really good, and it led to the biggest race start of the season so far. What did you make of it? So we go into turn one. Max gets a ripper start. The second phase of his start's fantastic. Oscar gets a ripper start, and Lando probably bogs a little bit in that second phase of the launch. And then all hell breaks loose.
So we spoke about the past incident, as we would say, with Lando getting a better start, ending up between Oscar and Max and sort of pinballing them through. And I did put that down solely as a racing incident. I kills me to say this, but I don't think that should have happened. And I don't think that's a move. Oscar's move, I think, isn't a move someone leading the championship. That's a move for someone chasing the championship. Sort of cutting back in turn one that way, there's always going to be a car there. At that point, they were 5 wide. And that's how, the start is. The track, the way that the track comes in and everyone sort of bundles together for that left hand, there was always going to be a car there. Unfortunately, Nico was there. Alonso was to Nico's left. Like there was always going to be someone there. I honestly think that he might have, and again, not something I usually say about Oscar, he might have been a little bit hot-headed in terms of, I'll get Lando now and I'll run away with Max. Because if he had have just let off and followed him around, it would have been a completely different result. And I feel like someone leading the Drivers' Championship, that's where the mindset should be. It's third is better than a DNF. And in that case, it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with some of the sentiment. I mean, it was a switchback. We see it often across any number of different racing when you watch it, the switchback, because he did get a better start and he just ran out of track, so he pulled in early and tried to come back in. You're right. There's always going to be someone coming down the inside. Where I probably disagree slightly is, I think that the Hulk was probably seeing some red mist as well, being that far up the grid, and I'm not sure who would have stopped him if it hadn't have been Oscar. He could well have ended up into Lando as well, because he was hot. And obviously he also had traffic on the inside, so he couldn't turn and he couldn't go straight ahead to run wide to get out of it because there were cars there. So I'm glad, I think out of all of it, aside of the fact that, Lando got taken out and he was the innocent party completely and all of that, it could have been a worse outcome for Oscar because he did take out Lando. That's not a good thing, but it could have been a worse outcome for him had Lando carried on. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that no one got penalised for it, because I think if, again, like we did last week when we spoke about what happened between Lando and Oscar, if they weren't leading the World Championship, if it was Pierre and Liam, we just go, cool racing incident, get on with it. Yep, hot-headed, aggressive, off you go. And again, I think that's what it is. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. You'd expect the championship leader probably to go, I should probably be conservative here. I've got some space. I can run wide. I can redress if I need to, but I get to keep going and I minimize any points damage. When instead, obviously, he made it a lot easier for Max to start trying to close that gap over the weekend because he ran away with it. I mean, he didn't run away with it because of the safety car, but obviously he was able to run away with 8 points.
Yeah, I don't think it was just as clear cut as in my head. I don't think it was clear cut. It was still definitely a race incident. Turn one is always going to have those things that if that was lap one, if that was lap 20 and someone sort of pulled that, you'd be like, hang on a minute, you could see where that was sort of going.
Well, funny you say that because that did happen. Not on lap 20, on about lap 7 when Veruca Stroll decided that he was going to try and drive through Ocon. But anyway, yes, go on.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think it's as clear cut, and it's a little bit. I don't know if it's if it was just that I need to get ahead now sort of move, but I think we said the same thing with Lando in last race where he had the better start and he was just trying to go for it. Just unfortunate that that's the way that it sort of ended after the incident from the last race as well. So
I'll talk about it afterwards. There's two things. The first one is in terms of the camera people. I've never seen them more hotly pursue a man through the pad. Like Lando couldn't get away from them, and I'm there watching it thinking, leave him alone. Like, what's he going to say right this second? He's just got back. He's just walked back. And he's putting his helmet away. They're following him there. He's walking through. They're following him there. I mean, the only good news is they didn't stop to take a picture of his missus on the way through like they normally would have. But I'm like, just leave him alone. Like, we're not that desperate to hear what he has to think that you have to do it straight away anyway. The second one was
I just have to say, maybe they were just waiting to see if he was going to grab a beer with the people in the crowd, like Chaz did when he crashed out.
He's not Chaz.
When he had the incident at Bathurst.
He's not Chaz.
Maybe he's cool now. Maybe.
The second one is, if you haven't watched the start, you need to watch on the coverage the review they did of some of the drivers and how they made their way through the traffic. Yuki Tsunoda made up something like 12 spots. Like, he had a phenomenal start. He was amazing. And there were a couple of other drivers as well who just managed to weave their way through all of the carnage. I think Charles was another one. And just managed to make it all the way through, and as a consequence, they got the benefit of it. So a really, really great race, despite the incident at the start of the race. So it was a really, really great race to watch.
Yeah, there's a lot of carnage in, was it 19 laps?
But I like that. I mean, at the end of the day,
I like it too. I absolutely like it too.
You come for the excitement of the race and you know what happens, and it was great to see a varied result for once, albeit Max won. It's great to see a variation in the results. You don't want anyone injured, of course, but you know, the carnage and all that. 5
DNFs in a 19-lap race.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Expensive.
Win it or bin it.
And then we obviously moved ahead into qualifying for the main race, which fortunately everybody that had damage from the sprint race still managed to make it into qualifying. I've got to do a massive shout out to KO as well, KO Sports here in Australia. I missed qualifying. So I thought I'll jump on to KO and I'll watch the highlights package that they put together. And somebody in their infinite wisdom made the decision that none of Q2 should be in the highlights package whatsoever. So it went straight from Q1 to Q3. And so I just had to work out who dropped out, which was really fun. It gave me an extra layer of things to do while I was watching the highlights. So thank you very much for that. I guess it serves me right for not watching the full thing.
Was about to say, mate,
there's lots going on. All right, there's lots going on. It's not my fault. It's my party.
Daddy.
So let's kick it off. Having a look at qualifying and Isaac Hedger. Again, don't want to touch on the old Rhys Ransom, but he had a pretty poor weekend. He was very dirty with himself for crashing out in Q1.
Wasn't a lot. Obviously there's a lot he could have done because 19 other drivers didn't crash there. But with the wind, the way that it lifted and the pace that he was carrying, there wasn't. As soon as it unsettled, he was done. And I don't think I've ever seen a driver of his experience, and remembering it's still his rookie year, being that hard on himself.
Absolutely.
Like I was like some getting left at the gas station type, worrying about him, like to check in and he's okay.
And let's remember the strength of his season since he had that DNS. Oh no, he was under starters orders, so DNF at Australia.
Yeah.
On the warm-up lap. So
in the wet again, where even very experienced drivers went off the track and didn't do. You got a cough there, mate. Didn't do too well. So,
but again, you hit the nail on the head last week when you said the usual suspects. So the bottom five there, Bortoletto, he's new track for him. So take that into consideration. He had not raced here before. Esteban Ocon probably outperforming in 17th. Lance Stroll meeting his target markers in 18th. And Alexander Albon having his weakest qualifying performance for a little while. He's sort of got a cold at the moment, I think, Alex. And he managed to drop out in Q1. Q2, Colapinto and Gasly Alpine double into Q2, which can only mean that somebody must have made a mistake further down the field. But I didn't get to watch Q2, so I can't talk on any knowledge. Yuki Tsunoda in 12th. Liam Lawson unlucky to be... that was Yuki in 13th. Lawson unlucky to be in 12th, from what I understand. He and Yuki resumed their war of words around who might or might not be the most aggressive short person in Formula One. And Nico Hulkenberg in 11th. Again, probably a little disappointing out of the sprint form, which gets us to the top 10, mate. And I want to Alonso 10th, Sainz 9th, another good performance from him. Finally getting used to that car after saying it would take him 2 or 3 weeks. It's taken him more like 7 or 8 months. Oliver Behrman.
But then there's the race with Sainz, and I'll touch on that later.
Yes, Ollie Behrman. He had a really strong qualifying performance, and early on in Q3 was leading the timing charts as well.
I think he got, I think he got one of the best times in Q3. Yeah, it was very, very high up there. I think it was like 4th or 5th in Q1.
He did.
Sorry.
So in Q1, absolutely Q1. He did. In Q3, he's ended up in 8th.
Yep.
Kimi Antonelli had a strong qualifying performance as well. He got unlucky during the race, which you'll touch on. And then we've got Oscar, Lewis, George, Charles, Lando, and Max. Now, obviously, Oscar's struggled for a majority of this weekend, but I just want to touch very quickly before we get into the race about Max taking out P1 without actually then getting around in time for him to have a last-ditch effort on
the hot lap.
The hot lap. So he did it. I dare say he did it at a canter because he still finished nearly 3/10 up on Lando Norris without having that final run. And Lando's best time was set during that last lap that he did. So I was just a bit surprised to see a mistake like that from Red Bull.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if there was time management. I didn't see enough of Max getting around, if there was like he was getting out of the way of traffic or if he was trying to hold back. He was trying to make more of a gap between himself and the car in front. I can't remember who went over the line in front of him, but I'm not sure if he was trying to make a bigger gap so you could get out of that sort of 3-second dirty air that they talk about. But it definitely started all at the pit release. So they were pushing it and then he had to go. But even if he had went, he would have been stuck in that sort of 2-3 second dirty air in the car in front of him. So I don't think he would have been improving at that time anyway. They were just trying to do the latest run they could get. I don't think anyone was expecting that his fastest lap wasn't going to be that last run like everyone else's were.
I just wanted to point out as well that he did the same amount of laps to qualify on P1 that Franco Colapinto did, who was eliminated in Q2.
Yep.
So strong was his performance. Lando did 20 laps, Carlos did 20 laps, 19, etc., down through the list. So a really, really strong qualifying performance from Red Bull and continuing on what was a very, very strong weekend for them.
Which is really props to the changes that they've made and things like that, because qualifying was where they were really, really struggling with tyres. They were burning through all their softs. They were doing like stuff just to try and get through him into Q3. So
absolutely spot on. Yeah, and we'll touch briefly on the Red Bull revolution a little bit later in the show. Brings us to the race. Max getting the win ahead of Lando and Charles. Lewis 4th, Oscar in 5th, George Russell in 6th, and I say Oscar in 5th only just. George in 6th, Yuki Tsunoda in 7th, the Hulk resurrecting into 8th, Ollie Behrman finishing in 9th, and Fernando Alonso coming home in 10th position. What do you think, mate? What was your sort of highlight and low light? What surprised you about the weekend? What were the key talking points before we get into Rhys Ranksome?
McLaren's second pit stop still sucking so much, which
big issue.
And hearing Zach say, I'll have to address it, have to look at what it is. It's like it's the first time it's happened. Like you need to be looking into it like 6 races ago. Like this has been a consistent issue of theirs with the wheel guns not tightening properly and having to have 2 or 3 goes at them. Other than that, honestly the top 10, other than Behrman, which I was stoked for him, and Tsunoda up there in 7th as well. Lewis Hamilton almost again finishing the race he finished the race last time with no brakes. He had a puncture. He had a puncture this time. So Oscar almost catching him. I think he was not that far behind him, so it was similar finishing. Fernando with Lewis the last time, except we actually got to see it this time, which I'll touch base on in later times. But my biggest was actually Carlos Sainz, and that again incident with Kimi. It was
a genuine incident.
Yeah, but it was. I think it was very uncharacteristic, I think is the word I'm looking for. To see sort of Carlos sort of outcheck himself and end up in that sort of situation. And I was getting so excited for him too, because seeing him grab a grip of the car, and he's been on the podium now in a main race and a sprint race. So I think that was the biggest burn of the race, with everything else going on, was seeing Carlos go out like that as well.
Do you think it was over exuberance? Just keen to get a result, keen to.
That's what I mean. I think he like just like I said, like chased himself, or he was going too hot. So you're absolutely correct. Yeah, they're the better terms for it than what I was trying to find.
Because you called this at the start of the year that he probably thought he was the main driver in this team, and this season he has not been the main driver in that team at all. So I mean, when we had a look at it at the start, you did call that one.
He did have he has had the best results, but the consistency is so roller coastery that you'd still, and like Kimi being on the podium and then sort of DNFing the next race, like it's a great result, but the consistency, like you'd rather get 3/4 than a third and 2 DNFs sort of thing. Like, and I think that's where he is. If he gets. But I can't see him getting like too excited. He's a very experienced driver.
He's a veteran, isn't he?
Exactly. And he knows he can do, he knows he can drive, he knows he can win, and he knows he can battle with the guys at the front. So I'm hoping that obviously next year that sort of changes for him with the start of another car, I guess. But yeah, I was disappointed to see it and surprised to see after his strong couple of results.
I think one of the things that I really, really enjoyed after Max buggered off into the distance.
Was Max actually in that race?
Yeah, he was. He was just around at the back of the field.
2023 race, 2023 Max again.
Doing Max things. I really enjoyed the Leclerc-Norris battle, softs to mediums. That was fantastic driving from both of them. The racing, look, and again, you go back to this. I've got a championship to think about. Norris had a couple of goes, and he managed really, really well. And I thought the racing was really respectful in the way that it should be, aggressive but not over the line. And Charles drove really, really well, particularly considering he was on the soft product and managed to make it, basically last as long as the mediums did in that window until Lando eventually got past him.
So, Are you saying that Ferrari's strategy was working, which meant that their drivers were able to do what they were trying to do?
Almost.
Okay.
Almost.
Okay.
So Lewis started on the medium. The bit that I wasn't a fan of is the bit where Charles suddenly decided that he would be an infant and he would race Hamilton on his in-lap and hold Hamilton up, who was on the medium tyre and could have run longer.
That was dumb.
It was just dumb. And they nearly ran into one another.
Yep.
So it's like, well, you're coming in, like, use the toe, let him go, whatever you want to do.
Give him DRS, give him a toe, slingshot him past you, and then cut into it.
And that to me is still the I know he's Mac, I know he's Lewis, but I'm Charles, and I was here longer, type of thing. And they need to get rid of that.
Big time, I
think. But the rest of it, I thought that the rest of the racing, and even in the second half of the race, when it all came back and Lando had to do it all again, the racing between the two of them all race was my highlight of the weekend.
Absolutely phenomenal.
The racing was fantastic.
You are correct in saying it. It's like going out with a child all day and they're amazing, and then they lose their cool over something ridiculously small right at the end. So it kind of takes it away from how good the day was, because it was when he held him up, because that was some of the most mature, aggressively safe, mature driving I've seen from Leclerc this season. in the way that he went about everything. And then, just threw the middle finger up at Hamilton at the end. So, and that's now all I can remember.
Yeah. So, and then you made mention, I heard a little bit about this in the newspapers, the Red Bull fine.
Oh. My tinfoil hat has fallen apart, but the internet has gone wild about this Red Bull fine, and how the team member from Red Bull was sabotaging Lando's car. They come out and said sabotaging the communication boards. They've come out and said, and all it was, the fine that they actually received was because a team member from Red Bull had gone through the entry into the track and then re-entered after the format lap had started, which is a big no-no. Now, he removed tape on the wall where McLaren had put to put Lando's car in the most prime position in his box.
Line up.
Correct. Yep. So they taped the wall, so he knew where he was going, so he didn't overshoot the box, didn't go too early, all that sort of thing. There's absolutely nothing. So the FIA came out and said, McLaren asked and said, hey, can we put tape? Can we help our drivers out that way? And they said there's nothing the FIA can do in regards to signage, promotion, all that sort of stuff inside the track. So they're free to do it. However, on the flip side of that, Red Bull's then free to remove it in petty games because it's nothing that the FIA can do about it, because it's nothing they could go and put a sign over it. And the FIA, well, we have no jurisdiction over anything to do with that. So all of the theories about what had happened and everything, it was the team member left the track, left the pit lane and re-entered the pit lane when he knew they shouldn't have. And the obviously the marshals were saying you can't come back in here. Now he's saying he didn't hear it and all that sort of stuff, but you can clearly see on the coverage that they were there like, no, like, come back sort of thing. So that's all it was. There was a €50,000 fine, which is like 73,000 Australian or something. Half postponed to the end of the season unless something else happens. But I did find it quite interesting that the tape was there to help Lando, and there's nothing that the FIA can do about anything on the side of the track. So, like on the signage on the track.
Red Bull have missed a trick here. They shouldn't have taken it away. They should have moved it.
Yes.
They should have just moved it forward a bit so that he was out of his pit box.
Or
surely.
like 20 centimeters back, so he wasn't quite in his pit box.
Well, he'd get a 5-second penalty if he was over the line.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah.
So, they could have done, if for conspiracy theorists out there, they could have done a lot worse than just take it off.
Absolutely could have. But apparently this happens all the time. The Red Bull play games with them and take the tape off it and things like that, and they're saying bad sportsmanship and stuff like that. But it always comes down to it. It always seems to be with Lando that I just figure he should know where to put his car now.
It's EA Sports, mate. It's in the game.
Max is there, pointed towards him. There was no tape for Max. There you go.
That's because Max doesn't need the tape. He's looking ahead, not next to him.
Correct. But yes, so all of the internet blew up, and my eyes lit up, thinking that something huge was going on. It was quite simple.
And it wasn't. It was just shenanigans.
It was just
schoolboy shenanigans.
Yes.
Well, speaking of shenanigans, let's move into Rhys Ranksome. I had a quick gaze at this earlier on today, and once again you've managed to surprise me with some of these allocations. So I'll for our audio listeners, I will just hold a straight face.
So starting from bottom to top, I've got Carlos Sainz to the DNF, so we'll leave him alone. Pierre Gasly, I've given a big fat F2. Struggling hard to keep Colapinto and Bortoleto behind him, regardless of tyres, regardless of fuel. That just shouldn't be happening. Bortoleto, Colapinto, Isaac Hadjar, I've given Ds to. It was very unfortunate of Isaac's qualifying. However, I did expect a little bit more from him coming back through the pack from what we've seen before. Esteban Ocon and Alexander Albon are both D pluses. Kimi Antonelli is C minus. Very unlucky with the incident with Sainz, not his fault, but again, did expect a stronger drive back in the Merc when he's got the cars around him, like the Aston Martin of Stroll and Albon in the Williams. I just did expect him to sort of get through a little bit easier. Lance Stroll, Liam Lawson, P12 and 11 Cs. Fernando Alonso is C+. And I just think it's because I expect a lot more out of Fernando, to be honest. Beeman, I've given a B2, finishing ahead of a more experienced teammate, where I still always go back to that engineer or the mechanic in the thing saying is Esteban for us. He's just proving time and time again that
You didn't qualify what he's more experienced in.
Oh, well, that is very true. Hulkenberg, I've given a B. P8, another points finished, and also highest of the midfield teams. And I put in brackets here other than Red Bull because I don't think I didn't realize, I didn't remember when I wrote this. I come back to it that Red Bull are now pretty much a midfield team. It's just Max. It's just Max that's leading. Well, they're fourth in the constructors, so.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter that it's mainly Max getting all the points. I mean, Yuki got some points this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've given Yuki a B with another points finish. George Russell a B. Piastri I've given a B+. P5 finish despite entering weekend as a championship leader. Decent but slightly underwhelming with what we have grown to expect from Oscar. B+ for Lewis Hamilton. Seems as if he's getting a grip on the car and the team. So, like we were saying that before. Charles Leclerc, fantastic drive, fantastic defending. Other than that little thing we spoke about before, but it was one of the best drives from Charles that I've seen this season. That's fantastic. Lando Norris, an A+, strong P2 finish. Maximise results given the circumstances. May have had slight margin for improvement in attack, getting past Leclerc, and I think we've seen that a few times, but I think it's more, again, when he knows that Oscar is in sixth, it's maximising his opportunity without taking himself out. But I honestly think that if Lando had got past Leclerc earlier, he might have had a chance to chase down Max later stages in the race, considering that gap sort of come back near the end. And Max A+, dominant weekend from pole to flag, led every lap, and significantly closed that championship gap. And that is this week's Rhyss ranks them.
Yeah, no, I think pretty spot on with the majority of those. I thought you were a bit light on the Hulk, actually. I thought you were going to go a bit harder there, but never mind.
It goes, so I sort of stipulated that it goes on my expectation. My expectation of the Hulk is pole and winning every week. So anything less than that is a disappointment.
Yeah, no, and that's fair enough as well. So.
We know that car can do it, but I do need to ask, what was your biggest... you said there was a couple that you didn't see eye to eye. What was your biggest one there? Because I thought I wasn't sure there was many outliers this week.
I think a B- to Oscar's probably on point. Kimi with a C-. I thought he actually had a pretty decent weekend given the difficulties that he had that weren't of his making. And George with a B, I actually thought was a little generous because he's been a lot better in that car. And maybe the car didn't suit the track quite as much. And so that's why he was where he was. But
yeah. I did have him a little bit less going into the weekend before watching anything because that's just where George starts. But watching his attack on Max in the sprint race, which I'm not sure why we didn't touch base on that, was wild for coming from George.
Absolutely, it cost him the potential to challenge for that race as well because he had to drop off to cool his tyres down.
I don't think he did. I actually don't. I think when he
think he was done.
I don't think he had anything else. Watching the battery deployment that he was going after Max, I actually think that he drove the neck out of that car, and that was just sort of where it ended up.
No, well, so as I said, a lot closer than normal in terms of where I thought everybody sat. Actually, so it's not one of those weeks where I'm sitting here shaking my head, wondering what you've been watching that I haven't been watching. But no, I thought it was. It's Julie, well done.
Now, I know we've got this a little bit the other way, but I think everyone's listened to me rattle on Rhyss ranks a little bit. So I might ask you in your segment of Mama always said stupid is as stupid does. So what have you got in this week's segment?
So I've got this gets a reboot this week.
I saw a life come into your face then. Like,
if it's your first, oh, that's not it. What's that? That's an old one. A bit of Danny Ricker's Top Gun. I don't know how that got in there. Sorry about that. That's just embarrassing.
That's in your secret folder.
I'll play this one instead. It's been a long day. I guess. So for those of you first time to the show, stupid is as stupid does, because Mum always see it. My favourite team, Alpine. Now, I was doing some other things in the background watching the race, and I must admit, I didn't hear the commentary, so I was popping in and out. I was actually doing some painting. And I just had it on the laptop screen off in the distance, and I kept opening the door and closing and looking, just making sure that everything was under control. And I saw a little bit of coverage at the end of the race about the Alpines and Bortoletto, and I knew they were down the back. I didn't pay much attention to it until you drew my attention to what was actually going on. So I went back and rewatched it, and we've seen in the press come out since that the head, and this isn't our good mate Berlusconi. What is his name? I can't remember his name. It's gone out of my brain. But he it wasn't him coming out. It was the head of it was the new CEO.
Flavio Briatore.
It
wasn't him. It wasn't him.
It wasn't him. But it wasn't him. That they were disappointed with what happened. So I had a look into this, and so Colapinto was told not to pass Pierre Gasly, despite being, and we're talking about positions 19, 18, and 17. Despite being on 5-lap fresher tyres, Gabriel Bortoletto, who was chasing down the Alpine drivers, at the time, Colapinto was trying to get past Pierre Gasly, and the team had told Colapinto not to pass Gasly, despite the fact that he was so much quicker than him that it was almost dangerous with him trying to get past him. And thankfully, Colapinto ignored that message, went past Gasly, and then Bortoletto also went past Gasly, and they finished multiple seconds in front of him, even though it happened with 5 laps to go or something like that. So 4 laps to go, 3 laps to go. So why you would tell your driver not to pass your other driver when you're not contesting for points, and it's a rookie driver getting experience in the cars racing against your veteran who hasn't had a great race on much fresher tyres, is absolutely stupid is as stupid does. They probably would have ended up, had he let it go, they probably would have ended up with Bortoletto either running into Colapinto, who had run into Gasly, or Bortoletto just finishing in front of both of them. And while it's not for points, the visual of it, having the 2 Alpines last and second last, is not ideal, particularly when you've got the opportunity not to have it happen. So that is my stupid is as stupid does for this week.
And I could not agree more. I do just want to say, though, for Alpine sponsors, it was probably the most TV time that those cars have had all year, which does then lead me straight into our next segment of the F1 TV director redemption arc. It's like he listened. All they, she, whatever, they listened. They finally listened.
You're talking about in last week when you went off and had a rant about the fact that 3/4 of the race was what is it, married at first sight or wags of the week or whatever you want to call it, and we missed pretty much all of the excitement at a pretty boring Singapore Grand Prix.
I did say that all they had to do was look at the timing screen that's in front. All they had to do, and then just the closest cars move the camera to, and going straight off that, when the 2 Alpines and Bortoletto were battling it out on track, the cameras were there because that was the closest action on track. So much so that I almost watched Colapinto drive into Gasly at turn 1 and reenact the sprint race.
Sprint
incident. But he the whole time that we watched the entirety of the Leclerc-Lando battle, the first one and the second one, when Hamilton was coming up on Leclerc, we watched that all the way back through the pack. We watched everything, and it was phenomenal, and it was great. And I really hope it continues. And the normal F1 to F1 TV director wasn't sick or something, because whoever did this one was amazing. So rant over. But they listened. I'm happy, and everyone else should be as well.
They did almost miss Lando. They did almost miss, Oscar almost catching up to a wounded Hamilton. But we'll forgive that because the rest of it was really good.
But we were watching. But we were watching cars still when that happened. We weren't watching pit lane. So
this is true.
That's like we're gonna. If there's two things going on the track, I'm happy. If there's two things going on the track and we're watching someone feeding a dog in pit lane, I'm not happy. So it's pretty easy.
You got to be careful with how you describe what goes on in pit lane, Jeebus. Just wanted to have a quick chat about winners and losers. So, just to touch on something new, winners this weekend. This is without preparation for you, so I'll cut you some slack here. Who was the biggest winner out of this weekend, and who was the biggest loser out of this weekend, in your opinion?
Red Bull, biggest winner. Absolutely has to be. Down to obviously Max winning the race, but also double points finish as well for the team, which is fantastic. So biggest winner there continues to me to be week in, week out at the moment, is Red Bull. Biggest loser, I honestly think, is McLaren. Only because I still feel like there's some internal rifts going on there that they may have left too late to fix.
Yep. So
where are you at?
Same. I was trying to. It was a little bit more, and I had time to prepare for this because I was the one asking the questions, so I look like an expert. I was a little bit more specific. I think that the biggest winner out of this weekend is Laurent, the team principal of the resurgent Red Bull team. So obviously, yeah, Max and Red Bull, great win. But 4 races ago, we would reflect on our show and say it's pretty much over for Red Bull and Max for the title.
We spoke about Red Bull leaving. We spoke about the team.
We did. Selling,
folding in on itself and going in. Like that's where we were with what we were seeing.
We went through all the machinations.
We did.
But now 4 races later, after the summer break, Max is now 40 points behind the championship leader. He can basically lick the back of Lando's neck from where he is as well.
Probably does that anyway.
And there's 5 race weekends to go still, 2 of them sprints. But not only that, and everyone will go, oh yeah, but it's Max. We did speak about the calmness in the car, and that was reflected again this weekend when they were having some issues with tyres, albeit you wouldn't know. Not complaining about the same issues all the time. You said sorting out qualifying as well, where they're not burning tyres to try and keep up with McLaren. All of those issues have just been whittled away silently in the background while McLaren are doing their thing and probably distracting everyone. But Yuki has also scored 16 points in the last 4 races, which is more than he had scored in the prior, 14 races before that or 15 races before that. And so they've fixed the car.
Fixed the car? Or have they just gotten rid of the problem?
Well, I didn't say how they'd fixed the car, but they've fixed the team. And we did touch about this last week, and we said that, it just feels different. It feels like more of a team than more of a single. You mentioned it to me today when we were talking about this. It's not a favour Vettel, favour Ricardo, favour Verstappen, albeit they're still, obviously they've made the decision to support Max in his bid for the World Drivers' title rather than to try and help Yuki win it.
It was a hard decision.
That was a long meeting. It was a long, long meeting. But that's down to the change at the top. So the biggest winner out of this, I think, this weekend is Laurent. He deserves a round of applause for how he's turned that ship around, very much so. And in stark contrast to that is McLaren. I think everyone's going to say, oh, of course you're going to say McLaren. But this is what happens when you try to swat away issues rather than fix them.
Yep. And yes, I could not agree more.
But it's not an easy decision to make in their defense, because who would they have chosen? And that answer is still not clear after Oscar's weekend. If Oscar had to come out this weekend and, beaten Lando and all that sort of stuff, then it becomes a clearer picture. But the problem is that they've had a DNF weekend and then they've had a week follow-up to that. But the biggest thing is that their advantage, that they flipped a coin and went from being also rans to challengers and then won back-to-back constructors championship. But the turn looks a little bit like what happened to Max at the end of last season, where McLaren caught up so quickly and made it so much harder for him to win. But it just feels like the tides turned out. The qualifying gap was huge this weekend in the main thing, and it's not the first race in the last 4 or 5 where Max has driven away with it. So it just, I think that they are the biggest loser out of this weekend if you take out of it the ones that always trip themselves over, like Alpine and the like. But I think they must be going, and they don't have time to go back because they're still in the States, heading over to Mexico, this weekend. But they don't even have time really to go away and debrief and look at it and fix the rattle gun issue, which has been there all season. And they don't have time to fix any of these things at the moment. So, and then we're off to Brazil in a fortnight after Mexico.
I was going to say, it's not even, yes, it's team dynamic. It's number 1, number 2 driver. You guys are both number 1 driver. It's all that sort of stuff that's still led us to this point. But it's the small things like communication with the team, the expectation of the drivers, and the rattle gun in pit lane. Broadcast asked Zach, hey, and I said this before, hey, is it something you guys are going to look at with the guns? Is it a gun issue? Is it an air issue? Is it what is it? He's, I don't know. I have to take a look at it. It's just happened. It hasn't just happened. It's been the biggest failure point, especially from a team that had the fastest. Last year, I think they had the fastest pit stop. They won the fastest pit stop last year. To now have this issue of the same thing, and it's just the second pit stop. So whoever's first gets in and out. So whether or not it's something, but it hasn't just happened. It's happened half a dozen times.
Yeah, I was just trying to find the notes from one of the previous shows, but we looked at it and it was something like there's been 9 or 10 wheel nut issues or release issues for pit lane, and McLaren's had like 7 of them. So it's not new.
No. So, but I feel like that's the same when they go back and they have these they have these meetings with the team, that sort of stuff. All this new stuff's happened. Oh, we have to work on that. It's not new. They needed to, as much as it's a teammate sport, it's not. When they've got the Constructors' Championship in the bag like they did weeks ago, they then needed to break it off and win. Who they chose, how they chose, I don't care. But if they don't do that, what we're seeing now is exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Danica Patrick.
It's when you make a move that's not normal, and you make the move, but it's not normal, and it's unexpected.
Unbelievable. So moving right into and clearly I agree completely with what you were saying as well. Mexico preview. So the reason I rushed straight into that, of course, this is the weekend where Max and Lando had fisticuffs last year. And so a similar issue this year, probably not expecting to have happen, but there'll be that irk in the back of Lando's mind where Max is like, well,
where he rents
I'm a 50-50 to win or not win the world driver's title.
Love Max.
But you're currently, ahead of me, so I'm going to push the point. This is the race last year where Max got 2 separate 10-second penalties. He duly dubbed one of them when it was announced over the radio as impressive, when he passed Lando and then left the track and gained an advantage and ended up with a 20-second penalty. So the last official race win for anybody in a Ferrari, do you think we may see a repeat of that this weekend?
No.
I thought you'd be straight on it. I don't think there'd be any thought in the process. Of course, Carlos Sainz Jr. winning this one last year, Lando in second, and Charles Leclerc in third. So a strong Ferrari weekend last year. So
Then it was
what are we
then
thinking?
it was double Mercedes, I think.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, and Max would have finished sixth with or without the penalties. It's the race you reminded me that the home race of Sergio Perez where he finished stone motherless last.
Yes, and then and DNF the year before. But anyway, that's not neither here nor there. I honestly think we're going to see the Red Bull struggle at Mexico.
Interesting.
Just in the past, it has struggled even when the car was quick. It struggled at Mexico, but I don't think Max is going to struggle. So I think where Max's brain is at the moment and his head is at the moment, the game will be clear. So he might not be there for qualifying, but I think he'll be there for the race. So whilst I don't think the car will be the quickest or the best, I think where he is this season and where his head's at with those around him, I think we'll still see Max come out on top.
So you're predicting another win for Max?
Yeah. I don't quali, as I said, I don't think he will be in the top 3 for quali, but I reckon we'll see Max win the race.
Big call. Will be interesting to see because the temperature, of course, in Mexico, and the tire management side of things, which it looks like Red Bull have managed to fix somewhat, given the temperatures over the last couple of race weekends, removes from mine a little bit of that advantage that McLaren had. McLaren have admitted that their DRS is not as strong as the Red Bulls. So
and Mexico is good for DRS, which is yes.
I was trying to recall what the issues were that Red Bull had last year, and I think you had already touched on it, which is this is where we were seeing not necessarily the height of it, but part of the issues with them getting the tyre to activate in qualifying and burning through tyres, and the tyre management from McLaren was much better. And that's why they were so far off the pace last time around. So I think that Max will probably get the job done. If he's going to do it, if it's easy to say, if he's going to win, if he's fast enough, I'll do a Danica as well. If he's fast enough, he'll be on pole and he'll win the race. But by that I mean if the changes to the car that have led to the resurgence carry at Mexico, which I feel like they probably will, that I think that he'll be just as strong as he has been over the last couple of weekends.
Yeah, I think thinking about it now, that's Mexico last year. Yes, Sergio's race wasn't great, but that's when Lawson was in the racing ball when he crashed into him.
Yeah. Yeah, that is it.
That is it. Yeah,
and he called him an idiot or something similar to
yeah,
that.
correct. But in the words of Will Buxton, mate, to win the race, you must come first.
Yes, this is very true.
Yes.
I think just quickly glancing ahead before we wrap things up, Brazil, tight, twisty, long main straight. Vegas, the pig. Qatar and Abu Dhabi, I can really, in terms of the way these tracks are, really Vegas is the only one for mine that there's a question mark over in terms of how the Red Bull will go, because of the fact that it's, well, it's not a racetrack. It's just
3 straights and a couple of squiggles.
It's a globe with some, it's a globe surrounded by 3 straights and some squiggles. So I think that it's, the only downside is the temperature, of course, but we've got hot environments for the rest of the season.
And that's where last year the McLaren really succeeded in, and that's where they got that. And then we're not seeing Red Bull burn through tyres like we were. We're not seeing Max's tyres turn off the way they were. We're not seeing them smash through tyres for for quali, sorry. So Abu Dhabi is about, I want to see Max Verstappen's lap of the gods successful at Abu Dhabi. His qualifying lap. He's won at every racetrack leading forward. So he's won at every racetrack. He knows how to do it, even with a car that was, okay. So where do you think what do you think we're going to be talking about in another 3 weeks after another 3 races? Can you see Max in front of Lando, or can you see Max where he is now, or ahead of? Where do you see us?
I think that this weekend they're all definitive, but I think this weekend is definitive in answering that question, because if Max now probably, I haven't done the math, but I think he now needs to only outscore them by 6 or 5 points a race weekend. Such was the margin. It was 7. He had to outscore them by 7 or 8 every race weekend for the balance of the year to win the title.
If Max wins every race to the end of the season, and Oscar comes second in every race bar 1, Max wins it.
I think that's how it was before this weekend, because there's only a 40-point gap, and of course there's an 8-point gap between first and second.
Yep.
So if Max and the Red Bull are dominant in Mexico and they get the win, obviously it means that Lando and Oscar can only finish second or third, and they both can't finish second. So he'll cut that gap again to Lando. And I think mentally that if Max is within a few points of Lando's mindset will change. Or I should say, I question whether or not after last year, if it's that close, if Lando can remain focused enough to race well enough to beat Max. Because I think even Lando would admit that, yes, on his day, or I can't remember, I think it might have been George who said it, on their day, no, it was Alexander Albon. On their day, probably any driver would be able to compete with Max, but Max has that day every time he races. So I can't see Lando not finishing behind Max if Mexico is a strong weekend for Red Bull. Oscar, on the other hand, I don't know. He's been a bit distracted by the team issues. So we've not seen, and we said he's the most, he's the coolest cat on the Formula One grid. That hasn't been the case over the last few weekends, I think. And he would say no, and obviously he knows better because he's himself. But I think looking at it from an outsider, you'd say that he's been impacted by the internal lack of absolute unwavering support, irrespective of what he fronts to the media about it. No, I'd prefer to win it this way and all that. And he probably does prefer to win it that way, but I think that's impacted.
Just so he can say, screw you to Lando. No,
absolutely.
And no other reason. See, whilst I agree in the past, watching Lando's development, I think it's going to make for a very interesting run to the end.
Yeah, I think this weekend is like, I hope that we get, because I really want it to go down to the wire. I'd love to see last round winner takes all.
2021 Hamilton Verstappen all over again.
I was about to say, no Mikey, no, none of that. But just out and out, cool. It goes down to the last race.
Yep.
Who can get it done? Top 3 drivers. It would be fantastic if it came down to that. The looking at the season and thinking it was going to be over with 6 races to go wasn't a great prospect. And talking about, the garagistas and who's going to finish where and all that, that's all gone, which is great. Yes. But that's where we were at.
Yep.
And I'm
Red Bull sold. Verstappen had gone to GT3 racing.
He was off to Aston Martin.
He was done off to Aston Martin. Everything is in the air. I'm excited. Formula One is here, and it is going to be a crazy run to the end. And yes,
absolutely. And there's only what do we finish first week of December? So we've got 6 weeks to go.
Yep,
7 weeks to go. So it's a jam-packed schedule towards that last race in Abu Dhabi on, I think, the 4th or 5th of December. But that brings this episode of The Top Step to a close. We will have a post-Mexico show in the lead up to the Brazilian Grand Prix, which is a couple of weeks after that on the 7th of November. So, as always, do drop a like, drop a comment, tell us we were wrong, whatever you want to do, but just get engaged with The Top Step across all of our social media channels and wherever you're listening. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you very much.
It's been another gem of an episode, mate. Great to catch up with you as always about all things Formula One. And on that note, we'll take it out and we will see you next time.
See you.
Well, that's a checkered flag. We're at the end of the race. Thanks for tuning in. You kept up the pace. Rhyss and Stuart signing off today, but don't forget